Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little warmer. A time of crackling fires, scratchy wool blankets, and stew that actually filled your belly. We're stepping inside the one place in the Middle Ages where you could finally let your guard down. Forget the dungeons, the plagues, and all the battlefield carnage everyone else on YouTube is selling you. This is what it was really like to rest in a cozy medieval inn. And honestly, you might never want to leave. So, before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. The road behind you is little more than a memory of mud, a ribbon of cold wind that clings to your cloak like regret. Your legs ache in that hollow, humming way that suggests they've been moving longer than they should have. The soles of your boots are slick with a paste of wet leaves and horse droppings, and your fingers are so numb you've started referring to them by number instead of name. Night has crept in like a thief. Slowly, thoroughly, and without asking permission, every tree on either side of the path seems to lean a little too far toward you, as if eavesdropping on your exhaustion. Then, through the fog curling low across the moors, you see it, aglow, faint and golden, like the last coal in a dying hearth. At first, you don't trust your eyes. It could be a trick of the mist, or a wish your brain summoned to keep your body from crumpling right there into the ruts of the road. But the light grows stronger with each trudging step, and now you can make out a shape, squat and crooked, huddled between leaning trees and mossy stones. The inn. Its roof is slightly caved on the right, and the chimney looks like it's trying to flee the building altogether, bending at an angle that suggests either shame or rebellion. Smoke rises in a slow spiral, sluggish in the damp air. The windows glimmer like sleepy eyes, their panes rattling faintly in the wind. You feel the promise before you feel the warmth. This is where the road stops. For tonight, at least. Your hand fumbles with the latch, slick with rain and stiff from the cold. The door groans as it opens, complaining like it hasn't been asked to work in weeks. Then, it swings inward, and you're swallowed. The air hits you like a thick wool blanket fresh from the hearth. It's warmer than you expected, and not just in temperature. It smells warm. Spiced broth, old smoke, worn leather, a trace of lavender gone stale in someone's laundry. The light is dim and golden, soaked into every timber and plastered wall, as if the room is lit from within, rather than by the sconces and hearth. You blink, letting your eyes adjust, and notice the fire first. A wide open hearth roaring like it has something to prove, casting flickers of shadow that dance across the stone floor. Voices rise and fall in waves. Low murmurs, the scrape of wooden bowls, an occasional bark of laughter that seems to erupt without warning. No one turns to greet you. They don't need to. Your presence is neither surprising nor interesting here. That, oddly, is what makes it feel like home. There's a mutt stretched out near the hearth, shaggy, mostly gray, with one eye and a tail that thumps once against the floor when your boots squelch. He doesn't move otherwise, just watches you, like he's evaluating your potential as a heat source or someone who might drop bread. A shape detaches itself from behind a barrel and becomes a man, short and wide, with a nose like a root vegetable and arms like firewood bundles. He squints at you like you owe him money, then grunts. One hand extends a wooden key, the other a bowl. No questions, no price mentioned. The implication is clear. You look like someone who needs both, and badly. You nod, or maybe bow. It's hard to tell anymore. Your legs move you toward the fire without conscious input, and when you finally collapse onto the bench, you're not sure if you're sighing or just deflating. The stew in the bowl smells like beef, possibly, or mutton, or some very unlucky forest creature that died happy. You dip your spoon and taste. It's hot and thick and vaguely peppery. There's a chunk of something soft and suspicious at the bottom, but you eat it anyway. You're not here to judge. You're here to survive, and maybe, if the inn is willing, to thaw out some part of yourself you didn't realize had frozen. The fire crackles beside you, the dog shifts in size, and someone in the back begins to hum a lullaby that might once have been a war song. You let your shoulders sag, your boots leak onto the floor, and your body remember that it belongs to you. The road is behind you, the warmth is around you, and the inn is already tucking you in. The door doesn't close behind you so much as it exhales. A long, low groan of swollen wood scraping stone, followed by a faint thump as the latch falls into place on its own. It's not polite about it, but it gets the job done. The cold air that had stitched itself into your cloak is banished with one gust, and suddenly you're inside a world that feels warmer than anything has a right to be this far from summer. The first breath you take is thick with fire smoke and garlic. There's a sweetness under it too. Onion maybe, or leeks gone soft in butter, or even something heartier, like marrow that's been simmering for days. The smell grabs you by the chest and pulls your lungs open, and just like that, you remember you're hungry. Not just I could eat hungry, not even hollow-stomach traveler hungry. You're something older than that, the kind of hunger that lives in your bones when you've gone too long without a roof, a spoon, or someone else's laughter drifting through firelight. The inn is louder than it looked from the outside, but the noise isn't sharp. It's rounded at the edges, clay mugs thunking against tables, chairs creaking in protest under stories being told for the 100th time, voices rising in argument only to fall again into chuckles and curses. A lute strums near the hearth, in no particular rhythm, like someone's testing the strings but not in a hurry to impress anyone. You smell beer before you see it, yeasty and rich, and something else too, wet dog fur maybe, or old straw trampled into the floorboards. You're not bothered. It's the smell of a place that has held too many people and still made room for one more. You pause just past the threshold, letting your eyes adjust. The fire is a living thing in the far hearth, roaring and popping and throwing shadows that climb the walls like drunken ghosts. Half the tavern is cloaked in its light. The other half flickers with candle stubs and grease-smudged lanterns hung on hooks. It is not a clean place. You wouldn't eat off the tables without a second thought. But it's warm, and every bench and cushion and stool looks like it has stories worn into the wood. You count 4 travelers sleeping upright, one passed out with his head in a bowl, and a barmaid who kicks him gently every time she passes, just enough to keep him from drowning in what remains of his soup. Your boots squelch against the stone floor, and you catch the glance of a man sitting near the hearth. He takes you in with a quick flick of the eyes, cloak, mud, tired stance, and nods like he's seen you before, or someone like you, many times. Maybe he has. You nod back, a brief tilt of the head that says, "I won't trouble you if you won't trouble me." The dog from before has wandered closer. You hadn't noticed it at first, but now it's sniffing around your boots with the curiosity of someone conducting an investigation. He's shaggy, mostly gray, and one of his ears stands up while the other flops sideways like it's given up entirely. He gives your ankle a sniff, then a gentle nudge with his nose. You don't move. You're not sure you could if you tried. A voice clears behind you, rough and used to being obeyed. You turn to find the innkeeper standing with one hand on his hip and the other wrapped around a battered wooden bowl. He says nothing, just hands it over, heavy with something steaming, and jabs a thick finger toward the hearth. He doesn't offer a price or a welcome. You understand the rules instantly. This place doesn't ask who you are until you've earned the right to tell it. You take the bowl and nod. It smells even better up close. The broth is cloudy and fragrant, clinging to the sides like it's been cooked into the wood. You move toward the fire, your feet no longer dragging but still unsure, like they're trying to remember what walking without pain feels like. As you reach the hearth, the warmth deepens. Not just the kind that lives on the skin, but the kind that sinks into your chest, unspooling slowly, like thread being pulled loose from a tightly knotted bundle. You lower yourself onto a bench, and the wood creaks in protest before settling with you. The dog curls up at your feet, his body radiating heat, his eyes closed in trust. You take your first bite, and the world gets quieter. Not because the room has changed, but because you have. You are no longer someone arriving. You are someone who has been allowed to stay. You don't see the innkeeper at first. He emerges only after you've taken your place near the hearth, bowl in hand, cloak dripping quietly onto the stone floor. The flames reflect in the slick spots on the table, catching the shine on spilled ale and the worn curve of tankards that have seen more laughter than scrubbing. A flicker of warmth works its way up your arms as you cradle the stew and stare into the fire. Then a shadow falls over your left shoulder. Thick, silent, and entirely unimpressed. You look up and find him looming beside you, arms folded across a chest, the shape and color of a cured ham. His face is lined in deep folds, the sort that might once have been frowns but have settled over time into permanent expressions of mild disapproval. His skin looks boiled and sun-dried, like something that once belonged to a living creature but now simply persists out of habit. His eyebrows are the most animated part of him, two great arcs of graying bristle that rise and fall like theater curtains. At the moment, one is lifted just enough to suggest skepticism. Not outrage, not offense, just the sort of suspicion one might have upon discovering a wet goat asleep in their parlor. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The eyebrow does the talking. Your hands tighten on the bowl, as if to prove you're not about to cause trouble. You consider saying something polite, but no words seem quite right for this moment, so you simply nod once, as though to say, "Yes, I look like hell, and no, I'm not proud of it." After a long beat, the eyebrow lowers, and he sighs through his nose. From the folds of his apron, he produces a key, iron, heavy, with a ring worn smooth by use, and places it on the table beside you. It lands with a dull clink, as if even the furniture is used to this ritual. The innkeeper grunts, a low noise from somewhere in his chest, then pivots and walks away, boots thunking across the planks like a drum roll with no climax. You reach for the key, still warm from his hand. The metal is chipped at the edges, the handle bent just enough to suggest it has been dropped repeatedly by guests less graceful than you intend to be. There is no tag, no room number, just the faint outline of what might have once been a carved symbol, now faded to a dent and a memory. Before you can tuck the key into your pocket, the dog returns. He sniffs once at your ankle, then lifts his head to inspect the bowl in your lap. His nose hovers an inch above the rim, the steam curling into his nostrils like a question. He doesn't lunge or bark or beg. He simply stands there, tail giving a half-hearted wag, eyes resigned to a life of culinary disappointment. You lower the bowl just a little and tilt the spoon toward him. He sniffs, decides it isn't worth the effort, and collapses beside your boots with a sound like an exhausted sigh. His side presses gently against your shin, and you can feel the steady rhythm of his breath syncing with the slow unwinding of your own heartbeat. A barmaid passes nearby with a tray stacked high with empty cups. She glances at you, then at the dog, and offers a tired smile that contains no surprise. You get the feeling this place has seen far worse than a rain-soaked traveler befriending the house mutt. She slides a piece of hard bread onto your table with a flick of her wrist and moves on without waiting for thanks. In the quiet that follows, you sip your stew and hold the key in your palm, its weight anchoring you more than you expected. Somewhere above, floorboards creak and groan beneath other guests. The wind outside rattles a shutter. The fire snaps once, then resumes its low, comforting roar. The innkeeper is gone from sight, but you sense him still, behind the wall, behind the bar, behind the long tradition of places like this knowing exactly how far to let you fall before catching you. You are no longer just passing through. You've been handed a bowl, given a key, and silently sized up by a man whose eyebrows know a liar when they see one. And yet here you are, seated, fed, warmed. You've been judged, and you've been permitted to stay. That's as close to a welcome as anyone gets in a place like this. The bench by the hearth welcomes you with a tired creak and a faint waft of dust disturbed by your weight. It's old, older than it looks, the kind of wood that's been softened, not by time alone, but by stories told across it, drinks spilled down it, and tired bodies leaning into its steady support. You set your bowl on the scarred tabletop, steam rising in lazy spirals that catch the glow of the fire like ghosts dancing just for you. The flames crackle and shift, throwing shadows across your face and warming one side of your body more than the other. It's uneven, imperfect heat, but it's honest. The stew is thick, a mottled brown that resists clarity, and it smells of garlic, root vegetables, and something darker. Meat, likely, though of what kind you can't say. You suspect the creature did not die peacefully in its sleep. You don't blame it. You wouldn't go quietly either if you saw this bowl in your future. Still, there's a comfort in its presence. The kind of comfort that comes not from elegance but from necessity. This is food meant to keep a body upright, to fill the spaces that hunger carved hollow. Your spoon is carved wood, smoothed by many hands, the edge a little chipped. You don't hesitate. You scoop a generous mouthful and bring it to your lips. It burns a little, but you don't flinch. The heat is welcome, even when it bites. It coats your tongue in salt and spice, thick with whatever was available, stretched with barley or maybe lentils. There's a softness to the potatoes, nearly collapsed from overboiling, and an herb you can't name but remember from something your mother used to make, something you only now realize you'd forgotten. The meat is chewy. You'll leave it at that. It might be goat. It might be beef. It might be something that once lived near a farm and died under ambiguous circumstances. But it's been cooked long enough to fall apart with effort, and that counts for more than species in a bowl like this. You chew, you swallow, and you feel it travel down into the hollow place behind your ribs where your fear lives. It settles there, warm and undemanding, like someone draping a blanket over a sleeping child. The second bite comes more easily. You chase a chunk of carrot that tries to escape your spoon, stab it with a practiced flick, and scoop it up along with a bit of broth. This bite doesn't burn. This one tastes like safety, or maybe just salt. You're not picky. You eat slowly, methodically, each mouthful shrinking the distance between the stranger who walked in from the cold and the person now breathing evenly in front of a fire. Around you, the inn continues to hum. Tankards clink. Someone curses cheerfully in a dialect you almost recognize, and the fire shifts again, casting new shadows that stretch toward the far wall. The lute is still going, though now it's playing something gentler, a tune that wanders without direction but doesn't feel lost. You lean forward, elbows on the table, bowl cradled close like it might vanish if you don't guard it. The dog at your feet lets out a muffled grunt, more vibration than sound, then rolls onto his side and goes still again. No one speaks to you. No one asks your name or what brought you limping down the muddy road at dusk. There are no questions here, only the unspoken agreement that all who sit near the fire are forgiven for now. You feel your shoulders unknot, inch by inch, as the food does its work, not just in your stomach, but everywhere else. Your fingers stop trembling, your jaw loosens. Your spine stops bracing for the next thing to go wrong. You scrape the bottom of the bowl, not quite ready to be done. You find a last bit of meat clinging to the edge and make short work of it. There's a streak of broth on your knuckle when you set the spoon down, and you wipe it absently on your sleeve, knowing it'll dry there, along with everything else you've carried in today. The stew is gone, the bowl is empty, but you're not anymore. You're warm, full, and, for the first time in what might be days, still. The inn doesn't know your name, but it's fed you, and that, for now, is enough. The fire isn't just a source of heat. It's a presence. You sit there, bowl empty and warm in your hands, and let your eyes unfocus against the flames. They move like dancers without choreography, unpredictable and self-assured, rising and twisting with no regard for rhythm. Orange fades into gold, gold into white-hot core, and the logs beneath crack and pop as they give in to the inevitable. There is no pattern to follow, no story to unravel, just motion and heat and light. You watch the fire, and the fire watches you back. It does not judge. It doesn't care about the mud on your boots, the days-old grime on your collar, or the way your shoulders still flinch when someone laughs too loudly nearby. It accepts your silence, your stillness, your weariness. The warmth that seeps into your skin doesn't ask who you've been or what you've done. It doesn't inquire whether you paid for that bowl of stew or merely received it out of pity or habit. It just keeps burning, indifferent and generous all at once. To your left, a voice rises, deep, theatrical, full of misplaced confidence. A man with a feather stuck in his hat is recounting a tale of dragons and near death, of treasure hoards, and the barmaid he swears he saved from a goblin king. His voice carries, not because it's loud, but because it's meant to. He's performed this story before. Maybe here, maybe elsewhere. The table around him chuckles in the right places, sighs in the rehearsed pauses, groans when he tries to sing. You don't believe a word of it, and you don't care. His lie is a good one, the kind that makes the room feel rounder, fuller, like a loaf left to rise beside a fire. You don't turn your head to watch him. You stay where you are, letting the flicker of flame and voice blend into one low, comforting buzz. If someone asked what the story was about, you couldn't say. You aren't listening for the tale. You're listening for the shape of it, the way it drapes over the space like a familiar blanket, patched and worn but still soft. The lute joins in sometime between the third and fourth exaggeration. A hesitant, uncertain set of notes, plinked out in a key that flinches rather than sings. The strings are old, slightly warped, and the musician behind them plays as if hoping no one's really paying attention. Every now and then a sour note cuts through the air like a hiccup. No one complains. The sound is fragile and honest, and that counts for more in this place than talent. Your body begins to lean forward slightly, elbows on your knees, shoulders bowed in that way a child does when fighting sleep. You catch yourself just before your chin dips toward your chest, blink once, twice, and try to sit straighter. The fire keeps pulling you back. It's hypnotic, yes, but more than that. It's comforting in a way that makes your limbs forget their purpose. Here, now, sitting like this, you don't have to brace for anything. You don't have to be alert or clever or strong. You just have to be. The dog shifts at your feet and lets out a low, unbothered sigh. His warmth has spread to the space around you, subtle but present. You reach down without looking and feel the rough edge of his fur, coarse and damp in spots, but solid. His tail taps once against your boot in response, a minimal acknowledgement, as if to say, I know you're here. That's fine. The fire hisses as a new log settles. Ash tumbles in soft flurries, glowing briefly before fading into the hearthstone. You imagine how many others have sat where you sit, how many backs have curved in this very spot, bent by cold or fear or sorrow, or nothing in particular. You wonder how many of them walked away lighter, simply for having been warmed and witnessed. A burst of laughter ripples through the room. The feathered man has just said something outrageous, and even the barmaid snorts as she passes. The lute stumbles, recovers, stumbles again. You let your eyes close for a moment, just one. The fire whispers and crackles and makes no demands. You sit there, wrapped in heat, in light, in the soft lie of a safe evening. And for the first time in longer than you can name, the world does not need anything from you. It simply lets you rest. You notice him again when the fire flares and shadows shift across the room, drawing him into the light like a secret that's finally ready to be shared. He doesn't move with purpose so much as with inevitability, his body meandering between benches and boots with the weary dignity of someone long past pretending he cares who likes him. He's old, though not ancient, wiry with age, not weakness. One ear stands stiff, while the other folds over like it once gave up and never remembered to recover. His coat is a tangle of gray and brown, more burr than fur in places, with patches where skin peeks through in dry, flaked worry. He walks with a slight lean to one side, as if gravity's picked favorites. You catch his eye by accident. It's quick, just a flicker as he passes your bench, but he stops. Not with drama, just a slow halt, a half step of consideration. Then he turns toward you, pauses, and studies. Not sniffing yet, just watching, his nose twitching slightly, tail low but not tucked. He doesn't ask permission. He simply steps forward, one slow paw at a time, and rests his chin on your boot. You stare down at him. He blinks. There's no expectation in his gaze. No whine. No wag. It's not affection, not quite, but it's something older and stranger. Recognition, maybe. The kind that doesn't rely on introductions or shared language. His eyes are the deep brown of good earth, rimmed with scars that say he's lost more fights than he's won and decided a long time ago that he doesn't care to win anymore. He looks at you like he knows how many nights you've gone to sleep pretending your hunger wasn't real, how many times you've chosen silence over truth because it was easier, and he looks like he's fine with it. Then, without ceremony, he turns one full circle and collapses against your shin with a grunt. Not a whimper, not a yawn, just a tired exhale that puffs dust from the hem of your cloak. He curls in on himself, back warm against your leg, paws tucked beneath a ribcage too narrow for his size. The top of his head nudges your knee, and his tail thumps once before going still. You glance down, not sure what the rules are. You're not his person. You've never even seen him before. He has no collar, no name anyone's mentioned, but he's here, folded into the crook of your space like he belongs there, like he's always belonged there. You hesitate, hand half lifted, unsure whether to pet him or leave him be. In the end, you do nothing. You rest your hand on your thigh and let it stay there. He doesn't notice, or he does, and doesn't mind. A barmaid walks past and spares you both a glance. Her mouth twitches like she wants to say something, maybe offer a warning or a joke, but she just nods and moves on. Another traveler, across the room, squints at the dog with something like envy before turning back to his ale. Apparently, this is not an honor freely given. The fire shifts again, sending new waves of warmth through the soles of your boots and up into your legs. The dog sighs, one of those long, rattling breaths that dogs use to announce they are deeply comfortable and slightly resigned. His fur smells of dust, of straw, of wood smoke soaked in skin. It's not pleasant, but it's real. The kind of scent that reminds you you're somewhere you don't have to keep pretending to be whole. You lean back just slightly, careful not to disturb him. Your spine relaxes into the wall behind you, your eyes beginning to blur with the heat and exhaustion curling in your chest. The room continues around you, stories spilling like ale across the floor, the lute stumbling into another clumsy melody, boots tapping, spoons scraping. But it all feels a little further away now, buffered by the presence at your side. The dog doesn't move. He's not here to protect you, and he's not here to be comforted. He's simply decided that of all the benches in the inn, yours is the one worth curling against tonight. That you are, in your present form, good enough. Maybe more than good enough. You still don't pet him. You don't want to break the spell. And still he stays. You're not sure when it got there. One moment you were nursing the afterglow of stew and the slow burn of fire, your hands idle in your lap, the dog warm against your shin. Then there was weight on your shoulders. Not heavy, not abrupt, just sudden enough to register. A soft weight, gently placed, as if the air had thickened around you for your own good. You blinked, lifted one hand to feel what had changed, and your fingers brushed wool. It's old, and not in the way things break down. Old in the way that good things endure. Thick, slightly scratchy, dense enough to hold in heat even without fire. It smells faintly of smoke, not just the kind curling from the hearth, but older smoke. The scent that lives in fabric after years of sharing breath with fire. Under that, a whisper of time, dried and stubborn. Maybe it was stored near the kitchen, or maybe whoever used it last kept sprigs tucked into their pocket to remind them of green things. You turn slightly, peering over your shoulder to see if someone's still standing there, hand lingering in the act. No one is. A few heads nod to the rhythm of the story still unwinding at the far table. The lute croaks its way through a familiar-sounding tune, and the barmaid walks past with a tray of empty bowls, her gaze sweeping over you, and then moving on without a flicker of recognition. If she placed the blanket, she doesn't need credit for it. You pull it tighter around you. It covers your shoulders and most of your arms, falling to your waist in a soft drape that traps the fire's warmth against your skin. It smells like other people's nights, like stories whispered before sleep, like rooms with slanted ceilings and windows cracked just enough to let in a breeze. It smells like comfort offered without requirement. Someone behind you laughs, sharp and honest, the kind that breaks through tiredness like a bell. It startles a grin out of you before you can think about it. You haven't smiled in a while. Not really. Not without cause. Not without permission. But the sound, joyful, foolish, unashamed, tugs at something in your ribs, and your lips curl before you even know what's happening. You don't know what the joke was, and you don't care. It's enough that someone, somewhere close, feels good enough to laugh that way. The dog shifts against your leg, his body rising and falling with each breath. He makes no protest to the blanket, no sign of jealousy or intrusion. You suspect he's worn it too, or one like it, that he knows the shape of this gesture even if he didn't make it. You run your fingers along the hem, feeling where it started to fray, where the threads have come loose in places. Someone mended one corner with mismatched thread, blue against brown, and didn't bother to make it neat. You like that. It's honest. The fire snaps, tossing a curl of sparks into the air that vanish before they reach the chimney. A traveler by the wall claps his hands once and chuckles as the storyteller at the table insists he fought off 2 bandits with nothing but a spoon and a loud voice. You believe none of it and want to believe all of it. It feels like the kind of lie that's done good in the world. You settle deeper into the bench, your spine sinking into the wood as if it's been shaped to hold you. The blanket cradles the back of your neck, the weight of it grounding you in place. You don't know who saw you and thought you needed it. You don't know if it matters. Someone did, and they gave it freely, without a name or condition. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and feel the heat of the fire, the roughness of wool, the softness of time in your nose. The bench shifts beneath you as the dog adjusts again, nestling closer. You breathe in the room, the laughter, the lie, the gift. And for now, this is enough. The innkeeper doesn't speak this time either. He catches your eye from across the room, nods once, slow and deliberate, then jerks his chin toward the stairs. That's all. A grunt accompanies the gesture, but it's the kind of sound that could mean anything from "your room's ready" to "don't track mud on the floorboards." He disappears through a side door before you can respond, and you're left with the last remnants of heat from the fire and the dog, who has not moved except to shift his head onto your foot. You wait a moment longer, reluctant to break the spell that's wrapped around your bones, but the weight of food and warmth has dulled the stiffness in your legs, and now rest calls from somewhere higher up, muffled and gentle. You ease yourself up, careful not to jostle the dog, who merely huffs and lets your absence slide off him like water from a duck's back. The blanket still draped around your shoulders shifts as you rise, its ends brushing the backs of your knees. Your limbs complain slightly, not from pain, but from the shock of movement after stillness. You roll your shoulders, adjust your grip on the iron key, still warm in your pocket, and step toward the stairwell. The staircase waits in a half-lit corner of the inn, half forgotten like an old habit. The steps rise sharply, worn down in the center from generations of travelers heavier than you. The wood is dark, almost black with time, and each stair bears the memory of boots and bare feet, spilled ale, and secrets carried away before morning. As your foot presses onto the first tread, it lets out a groan. Not a protest, just a weary acknowledgement of your presence. You grip the railing, thick and sticky with age, and begin your ascent. The sounds from below begin to fade as you climb. Not suddenly, but like water lowering in a tub. Voices grow distant, laughter dulled, the fire now a suggestion rather than a sensation. A floorboard creaks above you. Another groans behind. The stairs narrow slightly near the top, and for a moment you feel like you're climbing into someone else's memory, passing through a space not entirely convinced it belongs to this world. The second floor emerges without fanfare, just a short hallway lit by one candle flickering in a wall sconce, so crooked it's been leaning for years. You stop at the landing and breathe in. The smell is immediate. Linen long since dried on a line, lavender grown dusty, old dust warming under thin beams. Something faintly sweet and slightly sour, like apples left too long in a basket. The air is soft here, stale, but in a way that comforts. It smells like things that have waited, like someone's childhood room, emptied of belongings but still echoing with shape and shadow. You move forward slowly, letting your fingers graze the wall as you walk. The plaster crumbles slightly under your touch in one spot, smooths out in another. A low door sits at the end, its keyhole familiar. You don't check the number. There isn't one. The key turns easily, the old iron sliding into place with a faint resistance, like the door wanted to be sure you meant it. The latch clicks, and you push. The room beyond is small, narrower than expected, with a low ceiling and slanted walls that make everything feel just a bit closer than usual. A single bed waits in the far corner, its blanket tucked with more intention than precision, the kind of care given by someone who doesn't believe in fuss but believes in comfort. A table stands nearby with a candle stub and a tin dish beside it. A basin rests under the window, empty but clean, and the window itself, cracked open a thumb's width, lets in a breeze that smells of night and wet leaves. You step inside. The floor creaks beneath you. Not a scream, just a sigh. You close the door behind you, not out of fear or need for privacy, but because that's what you do when you arrive somewhere real. The blanket you're still wearing slips from your shoulders and lands on the end of the bed. You sit slowly, the mattress sagging just enough to say it's been used, but not enough to let you fall. You rest your hands in your lap, listening to the walls breathe. It doesn't matter if this room was meant for you. It is yours now. It accepts you, quietly, completely, like it's been waiting all along. The first step you take feels like stepping onto a memory. The floorboard beneath your boot lets out a long, tired creak. Not quite a complaint, more a greeting from something old that has grown used to being ignored. You pause, then step again, and the next board responds in kind, a slightly higher pitch, almost like it's harmonizing. The corridor ahead is narrow and crooked, lined with plaster that bows gently between beams, as though the inn has exhaled and forgotten how to straighten up. Candlelight flickers against the walls, casting warped shadows that shift with your motion. You take another step, slower this time, just to hear what note the next plank offers. It groans, then settles, a bass line to the treble sigh from behind you. You smile before you mean to. You walk carefully, not from caution, but reverence. The hallway feels like a place that remembers. Every patch of worn wood beneath your soles has been shaped by someone's footfall, someone else's long night, Another stranger's pause between leaving and staying. The scent of beeswax and old wool clings to the air, faint beneath a richer undercurrent of wood warmed by decades of quiet lamplight. The walls seem to hum with it, that history pressed into the grain, lives tucked into floorboards like forgotten coins. Your door creaks closed behind you with the same tired grace. The latch clicks, soft and certain, as though sealing not just the room but the chapter of the world downstairs. You run your hand along the inner wall, fingers brushing a smooth patch in the plaster where countless hands must have steadied themselves before you. There's a thumb-shaped dent just at shoulder height, and you press into it without thinking. It fits. Of course it does. You make your way back toward the stairs to fetch a pitcher of water you passed earlier. With each step, the boards sing their slow, mournful tune. You can feel it through your feet. Rhythms too complex to follow but familiar, in the way all lullabies are, even the ones you never learned. You reach the landing and hear a board creak beneath another set of feet somewhere in the hall. Not close, not threatening, just present. Another traveler in another room, moving toward their own quiet end of day. There's comfort in knowing you're not alone, even if no one speaks. The inn doesn't insist on company, only allows it. The wood sings for everyone, no matter how long they stay. You carry the water back to your room, your steps matched by the slow rhythm of the ceiling beam above you, shifting slightly in the cooling air. It creaks with the weight of the roof, not in distress, but as if stretching after holding itself upright all day. The sound is subtle, a settling, like the building itself is preparing for rest. You close the door again, set the pitcher on the table, and sit for a moment on the edge of the bed, letting the warmth from the floor seep into your soles. From below, muffled laughter rises faintly through the floor, not clear enough to decipher, just a gentle pulse of life continuing in the hearth-lit space you left behind. You imagine the storyteller has found a second wind, that the dog has curled up in someone else's shadow, that a new bowl of stew has been handed to someone with the same stunned gratitude you wore earlier. You imagine the innkeeper still moving through it all, slow and unbothered, grunting answers that are understood more by tone than words. You lie back on the mattress. It creaks. Of course it does. The noise folds into the layered music of the room, the rafters shifting, the wind pressing against the windows, the faint drip of water in the wash basin, and beneath it all, the subtle language of floorboards remembering every story they've carried. You let your eyes close, and the song continues. You draw the door shut with both hands, careful not to rattle the hinges. The wood fits into the frame with a reluctant scrape, edges misaligned from years of swelling, shrinking, and the quiet defiance of gravity. The latch is a simple metal hook, dulled from use, bent slightly at the tip as though it too has grown tired, but still intends to do its job. You slip it into place, and it holds. Not firmly, not with the authority of locks and bolts, but with the soft assurance of something that has been doing this for a very long time and sees no reason to stop now. The sound it makes isn't sharp or final. It's low and solid, more a sigh than a click. The kind of sound that settles in your chest and tells your shoulders they can drop now. You rest your hand on the door for a moment longer than necessary, palm against the grain, feeling the faint thrum of wind pressing from the other side. The wood is cold beneath your skin, but not unkind. Outside, the storm that threatened earlier has finally arrived in full. Rain taps at the roof above like impatient fingers, while the wind wraps around the building, testing every shutter, whispering under the eaves. It moans through the crooked chimney, not howling but humming. A hollow, lonely sound that belongs to the trees and open spaces beyond. But in here, with the latch in place and the walls pulled tight around you, that sound becomes distant, not threatening, not a promise of hardship, just a reminder of where you are not. Inside, silence begins to bloom. Not an empty silence. Not the kind that leaves space for doubt or dread. This is the thick, velvety quiet of a room that has closed itself to the world and now wants only to hold you. It wraps itself around the bones of the inn, softens the corners of the furniture, and sinks into your skin like warmth from a bath. You step away from the door and let the stillness follow you. Your breath is the loudest thing now, slow and steady, the kind of rhythm you didn't know you'd lost until now. You take in the room again, this time with the eyes of someone who's staying. The narrow bed with its lumpy mattress and woolen cover. The table scarred with old cuts and burns. The single chair that leans slightly to the left. A tiny window with glass so old it blurs the outside world into smudges of gray. This isn't luxury. It isn't even comfort in the usual sense. But it's something better. Safety, simplicity, belonging. You pull off your boots, grunting slightly as your legs protest the bend. The laces are stiff and damp, but they yield. One boot hits the floor with a dull thud, then the other. You set them aside near the wall, close enough to find if you need them again, far enough not to trip over in the dark. Your socks are heavy with the day's sweat, and you peel them off slowly, the chill of the room kissing your bare skin in contrast to the lingering heat of the hearth. The floor is cool but solid. It doesn't creak under your weight now, not the way it did earlier. It accepts you in silence. You cross to the bed and sit, the mattress giving a long wheezing sigh as if it too is ready to rest. You leave the blanket folded at the foot, unsure if you'll need it just yet. There's warmth still in your limbs, stored up from the fire downstairs, from the stew in your belly, from the dog who pressed against your side for hours without asking anything of you. You glance at the door again. Still closed, still holding. It's slightly ajar at the bottom, warped just enough to leave a sliver of air where it ought to meet the floor. But you don't mind. The wind can press all it wants. The latch is enough. More than enough. You lie back, arms spread across the mattress, eyes tracing the lines in the ceiling above. The rain thickens, pattering in a faster rhythm, then slows again. The wind groans low, like it's giving up. The inn creaks once and goes still. The door doesn't speak, but it stays shut. And that is the kindest thing it could do. The mattress greets you with a sound somewhere between a sigh and a groan as you sit, the kind of weary acknowledgement that only furniture with a long memory can make. It sinks beneath your weight, but only just, yielding enough to make space, not enough to swallow. The stuffing inside shifts reluctantly, not with the spring of feathers or the resistance of straw, but with a tired sort of dignity. It's been sat on, slept on, rolled on, cried on, and maybe even danced on by people who didn't belong to you. Now, it accepts you without question and without flair. You stay perched for a moment, feet planted on the cool floor, the blanket trailing across your lap like a robe too regal for its surroundings. The wool is thick and dense, spun more for survival than softness. It itches slightly at the crook of your knees where it's bunched, but the sensation feels more grounding than irritating, as though the fibers are reminding you that you're still here. It smells faintly of lanolin, sun-dried hay, and the unnameable perfume of age, the kind that clings to well-used things, kept close to the body. You wiggle your toes, still bare from your earlier surrender of boots and socks. They are stiff at first, unaccustomed to freedom, but the motion warms them. The floor beneath them has cooled, but it's clean enough, and the sense of rough wood against your skin anchors you in the present more firmly than anything else has today. Your toes flex, press down, curl up again. You exhale and lean back slowly, hands bracing against the bed, the old frame groaning in response but holding. Then the dog appears. You didn't hear him enter. He must have nudged the crooked door open or slipped through behind you when you weren't looking. But now he's here, trotting over with the lazy shuffle of someone who has already decided where he belongs. He pauses at the foot of the bed, shakes his coat once, sending a puff of dust and a few loose hairs into the air, and lifts his head toward you with a look that is not a question, not a request, but a statement. You pat the mattress beside you, and he doesn't hesitate. With an awkward hop and a grunt of effort, he flops onto the bed with the confidence of a creature who has done this many times before and fully expects to do it many times again. His weight lands near your hip, his haunch pressing into your thigh, and for a moment he just lies there, tongue lolling slightly, eyes half-lidded. Then he exhales through his nose in a long, slow breath and lets his head fall onto your shin. He's warm, heavier than he looks, and smells like straw and sleep and wet leaves. You let one hand rest on his back, fingers sinking into the uneven landscape of his fur. He doesn't move. His breathing slows, becoming the steady rhythm of something at peace, and you find yourself matching it without meaning to. Outside, the wind continues its slow dance around the building, rattling a shutter, sighing under the eaves. Rain taps on the roof, not insistently but gently, like fingers on parchment. The sounds barely register over the heat of the dog beside you, the weight of the blanket across your legs, the subtle creak of the bed each time you shift. The candle on the table flickers, casting faint shapes against the far wall that stretch and curl with each draft from the window. You think about getting up to close it tighter, then decide against it. The air is cold, yes, but it smells of wet earth and wood smoke, and somehow that feels right. You lie back carefully, one arm curled behind your head, the other resting lightly on the dog's side. The mattress adjusts to your shape with a soft protest, but holds you just as it held your sit. The ceiling above is low and plain, the plaster uneven, a long crack running from corner to corner like an old map. You trace it with your eyes, letting your mind wander nowhere in particular. The dog lets out a small snore, followed by the twitch of one back paw. You feel it through the blanket and smile without meaning to. You're not sure if the bed sighs again or if that was just you. Either way, the sound fits. And you don't plan to move again for a long while. You don't notice them at first. The warmth of the bed has claimed your attention, drawing you inward, and the dog has become a soft, heavy anchor at your side. For a while, the only sounds you register are the slow inhale and exhale of your own breath, the occasional tap of rain on the shutters, and the whisper of wind curling around the edges of the inn. Then something stirs in the wall. It's faint, barely there, like the scratching of a dull quill on dry parchment. A light rustle, then a pause. Another scuff, more deliberate, followed by what sounds like a tapping, quick, erratic, but purposeful. You tilt your head slightly, not alarmed, just curious. The dog does not stir. That alone tells you there's no reason to be concerned. The sounds continue, moving in small bursts. You can't tell how many of them there are. 2, 3, maybe more. But they are coordinated, in the clumsy, chaotic way of things that have known each other too long to need precision. They rustle again, then tap, then one lets out a noise that might be a squeak, or might just be a pebble shifting against wood. The noise trails along the base of the wall, under the wainscoting, and rises briefly toward the corner where the ceiling meets the beam. They're not trying to hide. Not really. They're simply living their lives parallel to yours, behind plaster and timber, small night workers on unknown missions. One of them chews at something, an old piece of cloth maybe, or a crumb that found its way into the cracks. It's rhythmic, industrious, the kind of chewing that has purpose, that will eventually create a nest or repair a tunnel or simply make the hours pass. You close your eyes and listen. The chewing stops. Silence hangs for a beat. Then there's movement again, closer this time, more erratic. A quick succession of taps, like footfalls in miniature. Then it stops again, and for several long seconds, nothing happens. The pause stretches out, still and complete. It feels like a conversation is taking place on the other side of the wall. A meeting. A mouse council convening to decide the affairs of the night. You picture them sitting in a semicircle, tiny elders with fur worn thin around their ears, arguing about who gets which crumb and whether the weather will hold through the morning. Then, without ceremony, the rustling begins anew, brief, decisive, fading quickly into the deeper parts of the wall. You let your eyes open, just enough to catch the shifting shadow of the candle on the ceiling, and find yourself smiling. Not out of amusement, but out of something softer, stranger. It feels like the mice have marked you as part of the room now, accepted your presence the same way the dog has, the same way the bed creaked but didn't reject you. You weren't invited. You simply showed up and behaved yourself. The dog lets out a low puff of air, ears twitching once before settling again. You rest your hand on his back and feel the slow rise and fall of his breath. The mice have gone quiet again, but their absence feels less like they've retreated and more like they're still there, listening, watching, maybe, in their own way. You feel oddly protected, as though those tiny unseen creatures would sound the alarm if something were to go wrong, if the wind crept too close, if the night reached too deep. The wall hums faintly, not with sound, but with presence. You wonder how many travelers, before you listened to the same rustles, heard the same tap-tap of tiny claws on old wood. How many people sat just where you are now and imagined that a family of mice was building something behind the paneling. A home, a legacy, a fortress of crumbs and lint and dry straw, stolen from forgotten corners. It's strange how comforting it is to be watched over by something so small. You close your eyes again, this time for real. The mice do not return, but the echo of them remains, tucked into the folds of the room like a lullaby. And for the first time in a long time, you feel like nothing has to be guarded. Not here, not now. The mice will handle it. The window's glass is old, thick with ripples that warp the view outside into gentle distortion. When you lean in close, the cold radiates through it and into your skin, but not in a biting way. It's the kind of chill that reminds you you're inside, safe and warm, separated from the night by a thin but loyal pane of glass. You exhale without meaning to, and your breath blooms across the window, a slow blossom of fog that spreads and fades at the edges like the ghost of something tender. You watch it disappear, then breathe again, deliberately this time. The fog returns, clouding your reflection until you can barely see yourself, just the vague curve of a nose and the dark smudge of a watchful eye. You lift one finger and press it to the center of the glass, then draw a slow, careful star. The streak your finger leaves behind is faint but certain, a 5-pointed outline that cuts through the fog and leaves your mark behind. It's small, uneven, slightly lopsided, but it stays. Outside, snow has started to fall. It drifts gently at first, the flakes wide and slow as if the sky is taking its time. You can't hear it. Snow never makes a sound when it lands, but you can feel its hush in the air, a softening of everything beyond the window. The world seems to dim just slightly, the distant shapes of trees and rooftops becoming fuzzier with each flake. No wind, no motion, just the slow descent of white, settling into the corners of the earth like dust on an old book. You reach out with your finger again and add a second star beside the first, smaller, more careful, then a third. Before long, there's a whole constellation on the glass, crude and fleeting, but yours. They shine in their own way, reflecting what little light the candle behind you offers. You lean back a little and glance over your shoulder at the flame. The candle has burned low, a stub now, resting in its shallow tin base on the crooked wooden table. The wax has pooled at one edge, cooled and reformed in a lopsided puddle. The flame flutters more than it dances, rising and falling like a breath, steady and close. It doesn't light the whole room, only the space around the bed, the window, the table. It doesn't need to do more. The rest can remain in shadow. You think of the fire downstairs, of the stew, the dog, the laughter, the blanket. All of that warmth seems to have followed you up the stairs and taken root in the walls of this room. Even with the wind's low groan outside and the snow tapping gently against the roof, you don't feel alone. The candle glows beside you like a guardian, not bright enough to disturb, but present enough to assure. The dog stirs on the bed and makes a sound somewhere between a grunt and a sigh. He's curled now, tighter than before, with his nose tucked against his tail and his paws twitching slightly in a dream. You glance down at him and wonder what he sees. A field, maybe, or a rabbit just out of reach. Something worth chasing. You're glad he's here. You touch the window once more, this time just to feel the cool beneath your fingertip. Your stars are still visible, though fading. The fog will return, and the lines you drew will vanish. But for now, they remain. Your little constellation marking this quiet moment. Outside, the snow continues to fall, slower now, like it's grown tired, mid-descent. You rest your forehead gently against the glass and close your eyes. The pain is cool, but not unfriendly. Behind you, the candle flickers again, and for the briefest moment, the flame stretches tall and straight, casting a clear golden light across the room. It feels like someone tucking you in, not with hands or words, but with warmth, with hush, with the softest kind of care. You draw one last breath. The window fogs over, and you let the darkness settle like a blanket. You notice it while lighting the candle on the bedside table, the flame wobbling as it catches the wick, casting long shadows across the uneven floor. The room is otherwise still, soaked in that deep hush that only comes once the wind outside has tired itself out, and the fire downstairs has been stoked into sleep. The dog lifts his head, one eye half open, then resettles with a soft huff. As you turn away from the candle, your eyes catch on the glint of something at the foot of the bed, barely visible in the flickering light. It's the chamber pot. Of course it is. It's expected. Every room has one, but somehow you'd forgotten until now. It sits, squat and wide-mouthed, in the shadow between the wall and the bed frame, as if it's shy about its purpose. The glaze is worn thin in places, the white surface stained into a pale ivory with age and use. It's not offensive, just there, practical, ancient, patient. You lean down to get a better look, thinking only to shift it further beneath the bed, out of sight, out of mind. But then you see the name, etched right into the curve of the handle, Brunhilde. You blink, then squint. The carving isn't decorative, not the careful script of a craftsman showing off. It's jagged, uneven, done with a dull blade or a very stubborn nail. Someone pressed those letters in with force, made them count. The R curls awkwardly. The U looks like it once was a V. And yet there's no mistaking it. Brunhilde. Not scratched randomly, not part of the design. It's a name, chosen with intent, left to be found. You sit back on your heels and stare. Somehow, the chamber pot feels less like an object and more like a character now, introduced mid-scene with no lines but plenty of presence. You find yourself oddly touched. Someone, at some point, possibly out of boredom, or affection, or the delirium of a long night and a bad stomach, decided this humble vessel needed an identity, not a number, not a mark, a name. You straighten up, half laughing to yourself, and lift one hand in a small, respectful salute. Brunhilde, you murmur, solemn as a knight swearing an oath. The dog flicks an ear but otherwise refuses to engage in your nonsense. You leave her where she is, untouched but acknowledged. There's something reassuring about her presence. As odd as that may be, she'll be there if needed, unflinching, loyal in her own strange way. You imagine all the others who've shared this room before you. Strangers now, only in name, but bound to you by the simple act of sitting on this bed, drawing on this foggy glass, listening to mice tap in the walls, and laughing quietly at the discovery of a named pot. Perhaps they saluted her too. Perhaps one of them even gave her that name. You lie back on the mattress and let your eyes wander the ceiling's cracked plaster. The candle sputters once, but the flame recovers, casting a flickering oval of light across the beams. Everything in this room feels lived in, not in the messy sense, but in the way old things hold memory. Every creak of the floor, every warped drawer in the bedside table, even Brunhilde, waiting faithfully below, feels like part of the script. The bed shifts slightly beneath you as the dog turns in his sleep, pressing his back against your shin. You drape the blanket over your legs and exhale slowly, letting your body settle into the dip that's already been carved into the mattress. Sleep presses gently at the corners of your mind, warm and soft. You let it in. Before your eyes close fully, you glance one more time toward the foot of the bed. Brunhilde rests in shadow, sturdy and silent. You feel oddly comforted. Whatever else happens tonight, she's got you covered. The blanket is heavier than it looks. When you pull it up from the end of the bed, it resists slightly, as though reluctant to disturb itself, like it's already asleep. The wool is coarse, but forgiving, thick with age and use, and when you drape it over your shoulders, it settles across your chest with a weight that isn't burdensome so much as anchoring. It doesn't just cover you, it claims you. You lie back, tugging the corners closer until the edges meet beneath your chin, and you exhale as the warmth takes hold. There's a moment of perfect stillness as it molds to you, adjusting to your shape as if recognizing it. You shift slightly, and the blanket shifts with you, not with static stiffness, but with the quiet familiarity of something that has done this many times before. It's not pristine. The fibers are a little rough in places, slightly bald with age. But none of it matters. The comfort is not in the texture, but in the history pressed into every thread. It smells faintly of cinnamon, not sharp or cloying, but soft, baked into the wool like the memory of spiced bread or mulled cider, some ghost of a holiday long past. There's something else too, warmth that isn't heat. It smells like old laughter. Not the laughter itself, but the echo of it, the way a room sometimes feels after a story has been told and retold, each telling polishing it into something round and golden. It's absurd to think a blanket could hold such things, but there's no denying what your senses tell you. You close your eyes and breathe in deeper. The scent settles somewhere behind your ribs, and you think of all the bodies this blanket has covered. Strangers to you, yet not entirely. Travelers, farmers, mothers with infants tucked against their sides, someone with a bad knee, and someone else with a broken heart. People who arrived in this very room, bone-tired and speechless, who sat just where you did, who wrapped themselves in this same wool and let it hide them from the world. People who needed a night to not be anything to anyone. You wonder if the blanket remembers them, if fabric can carry something beyond warmth, something deeper, quieter. You picture dreams folded into the weave like seeds in soil, left behind by sleepers who press their hopes and fears into the night and let them drift into the threads. Maybe this is why it feels the way it does. Not just warm, but known. The blanket knows how to hold a body that has been walking too long, that has forgotten how to rest. You shift again, burrowing in, and the fabric hugs closer. Not tight, just enough. As if to say, you are not the first to feel this tired. You are not the first to seek refuge in the soft and the still. The dog sighs from the corner of the bed and presses his weight against your calf. His warmth is simpler, immediate, physical, but it pairs with the blanket like old friends sharing a watch. One wraps your limbs, the other your silence. Together, they form a small, imperfect cocoon in the middle of a creaky wooden room, above an inn that doesn't ask too many questions. The candlelight flickers low, casting dim shadows that stretch slowly across the walls. The wind has quieted into the soft hush of snowfall. Even the mice in the walls seem to have curled into sleep. The night folds itself around you, and the blanket folds with it, locking out the chill, the noise, the weight of the road you came in on. You tighten your grip around the edge, fingers curling into the wool as your breath slows. The blanket doesn't move. It doesn't need to. It holds you with the same patience. It's held countless others, asking nothing but presence. And as your eyes close, you let it carry your dreams the way it has carried so many before you, quietly, warmly, without ever letting go. The dog slides off the bed sometime after your eyes close, not with a leap or a grunt, but with the slow, dragging descent of someone who has decided the floor is simply more honest. The mattress creaks once as he slips from it, followed by the soft shuffle of his body resettling onto the boards beside you. You don't open your eyes to watch. You feel it. The shift in warmth, the slight change in weight, the adjustment of air as he circles once before, flopping down with the conviction of a creature who's lived long enough to earn comfort without explanation. His presence on the floor doesn't diminish the closeness. If anything, the room feels more full with him stretched beside the bed, his back pressed against the frame, his heavy breathing already resuming as though he never paused. It's not a sharp snore, nothing so abrupt or cartoonish. It's low and steady, like the creak of a ship riding a calm sea. In, out, in, out. Each breath has a weight to it, thick with contentment, as though he's exhaling every worry he never had to carry. You lie still, wrapped in your blanket, the wool now molded to your shape. The room is dark now, save for the last whisper of light from the candle, a faint halo around the stub of wax. Shadows flicker gently across the ceiling, not dancing, but shifting, like they're turning down for the night, along with everything else. The sound of the wind has nearly vanished, muffled by snow and walls and distance. It all fades into the rhythm of the dog's breathing. You listen. At first, it's just noise, background to the thoughts still drifting in the quiet space between wake and sleep. But then you start to feel it, not just in your ears, but in your chest. His snores fall into a cadence that matches your heartbeat. Not perfectly, but close enough. The deep inhale, the pause, the exhale. Your own breath slows without thinking. It sinks. The air in the room settles heavier. A pulse, a lullaby in two bodies. You shift your hand beneath the blanket and let your fingers rest over your heart. You feel its rhythm there. Slow, steady, no longer racing with the echo of the road or the sharp alertness of unfamiliar places. The thump matches the sound rising from the floor beside you. A harmony, soft and unintentional. The dog snorts once in his sleep. A wet, ungraceful burst of air that ends with a lip-flapping puff. You almost laugh, but the sound gets caught in your throat and settles into a smile instead. You peek over the edge of the bed, just enough to catch the outline of him. He's on his side, one ear folded beneath his head, legs sprawled without dignity. There's a small pool of drool collecting beneath his jaw, darkening the floor. His back leg twitches suddenly, kicking out once, twice, like he's running. You imagine dream geese flapping just ahead of him, honking with mockery, their wings just out of reach. He kicks again, then stills. You lie back. Something about that little burst of motion feels reassuring. Not just because it proves he's dreaming, but because it means this place is safe enough for him to dream in. Animals don't fake peace. They sleep only when the air feels right, when the walls don't lean too strangely, when the people in the room aren't humming with danger. His snore returns, softer now, a slow rattle of breath through a tired nose. You let your eyes close again. The room is full of quiet sounds. The snore, the soft whistle of wind against the shutter, the creak of the ceiling above as it settles more deeply into the bones of the night. Everything breathes. You breathe. The dog breathes. The world, for now, does not ask anything more of you than this. So you drift, not into nothing, but into the warm shadow of shared rest. His dream geese scatter. Yours, if they come, will be gentler, perhaps quieter, perhaps not birds at all. But whatever they are, you'll follow them into sleep, your body rising and falling in time with a snore that has become a heartbeat, a companion, a song. The candle burns low on the bedside table, its wax puddled in a shallow basin that leans slightly to one side. The flame is no longer bright. It no longer reaches upward with confidence. It dances in slow, uncertain loops, swaying left, then right, trembling as if from the weight of its own flickering. You lie still beneath the blanket, your head turned toward the soft light, eyes half-lidded as the room slips further into silence. The shadow it casts across the wall is long and uneven. At one moment it stretches like a hand reaching up, and in the next it folds into itself, shrinking back to nothing. The flame and the shadow seem to speak in some secret language, one you don't understand but feel compelled to listen to. You watch them for a long time, saying nothing, doing nothing, just letting the minutes fold around you like layers of worn linen. Time passes differently here, slow and round-edged, like it has softened out of respect for the quiet. Then the memory comes, not suddenly, but like a breath, drawn through a half-open window. It arrives in the back of your mind without asking for permission, riding in on the warmth and light of that candle's stubborn glow. It's a fire you remember, not this one, but one from long ago. A fire on a hearth made of cracked brick, one that always seemed too small for the space it tried to warm. Your mother used to kneel beside it in the evening, her sleeves rolled to her elbows, her hands red from scrubbing or slicing or kneading, something you couldn't yet name. You used to pretend to sleep near the wall, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of flour and smoke, and you'd watch her from under the edge of it, just like you're watching the candle now. She would hum when she thought you'd gone still. Never songs with words, just melodies, gentle, meandering, with no true beginning and no clear end. The kind of tune made for simmering broth or stitching seams by firelight. She didn't sing it for an audience. It wasn't meant to be remembered, and yet you did. You remember the curve of her back as she leaned over the pot, the way the firelight made her shadow leap across the walls, how the notes seemed to melt into the crackling wood and hang in the air long after she stopped. You didn't understand it then, the way music could fill a room even when it was quiet. You only knew that when she hummed like that, the world felt smaller, safer, softer. Like nothing could slip in through the cracks, like the cold outside didn't matter. The candle flickers, and for a moment you imagine it takes the shape of her hands, calloused and sure, never quite still, always busy with something useful. The flame folds in on itself, flares, then settles again. You blink once, slowly, letting the memory settle where it wants to go. The dog snorts in his sleep, legs twitching, and the moment shifts just enough to keep you present. You glance back at the wall, at the strange shape of your own shadow now caught in the candle's cast. It leans long and thin, barely anchored to the bed, stretched as if it's looking for a way out or back or deeper in. You let it stretch, you don't stop it. There's no singing now, only the faint crackle of wick and wax. But the quiet holds the same tune. You hum it, just once, under your breath, barely a whisper. Not a melody really, just a shape of one. The kind of sound you'd forget as soon as you tried to hold it. It disappears into the dark as quickly as it came, but it doesn't need to last. It already did what it came to do. You watch the flame until it steadies again. Not bold, not strong, but steady. That is enough. The socks are waiting for you near the foot of the bed, folded in a way that says someone took the time to do it right. You pause when you see them, not because they don't belong, but because you hadn't expected to see them again tonight. You remember pulling them off with some effort downstairs, the wool clinging to your damp ankles like stubborn weeds, and laying them near the hearth to dry. They'd steamed faintly as you placed them on a stool by the fire, the scent of wet wool mingling with ash and stew and the warm presence of the dog at your feet. Then you turned away, distracted by the bench, by the food, by the quiet company. And now, somehow, they're here. Still warm. You reach for them without standing, leaning forward just enough to let your fingers brush the fabric. The heat isn't strong, not fresh from the hearth anymore, but it lingers, trapped between the folds, in the thickness of the knit. Someone carried them up after you left, climbed the stairs with your socks in hand, and placed them here without fanfare or mention. You picture a hand that didn't hesitate, footsteps that didn't need to be quiet, the ease of familiarity moving through a space that accepts these small, silent acts. You wonder who did it. The barmaid, maybe, with the half-smile and the sharp elbows who nudged a snoring man out of his soup without spilling a drop. Or the innkeeper himself, grumbling and efficient, seeing more than he let on beneath his furrowed brow. Perhaps even one of the strangers at the fire, someone who thought little of it, who simply saw something left behind and wanted to return it. You picture them all briefly, each one in turn, carrying your socks as if they were no trouble at all. Then, you let the thought go. It doesn't matter who. What matters is that someone did. Not for thanks, not for recognition, but because this place makes people do things like that. Quiet, thoughtful things. The kind that go unnoticed until they're needed most. You pull the socks on slowly, one foot at a time, savoring the warmth still nestled in the wool. The fabric scratches gently at your skin, but it's the good kind of scratch. The kind that reminds you you're clean now, dry now, no longer tracking mud across the floor or dripping rain into your sleeves. The wool clings just enough to hold on, but not enough to bind. They're not new, these socks. The heel on one is slightly thinner, the edge of the other cuff a little uneven. But they fit. They know the shape of feet and the weight of tired legs. You press your soles into the floor and feel the comfort of dry wood beneath them. No squelch, no chill, just the soft thud of warmth meeting warmth. You curl your toes inside the socks and stretch your legs out in front of you, letting your heels rest on the floorboards, and watch as the dog lifts his head, glances at your movement, then drops it again with a huff. Approval, maybe. Or indifference. Either way, he's still here. The candle on the bedside table flutters faintly, the flame shrinking just a little as the last of its wax pools in the center. Shadows deepen, thickening around the edges of the room, but you don't feel the need to chase them away. Your feet are warm now. That's enough. You lean back against the pillow and let your arms fall at your sides, fingers loose, muscles soft. The blanket rises gently over your shins, and the weight of the day eases from your knees and ankles, replaced by something simple. Dryness, softness, care. Your eyes wander to the window, where snow still falls beyond the pane in lazy spirals. The wind has settled into long, steady exhales against the eaves, no longer pressing, no longer asking anything of you. You sink into the mattress and draw the blanket higher over your chest. The socks hug your feet like old friends returning after a long absence. You do not wonder again who brought them. You simply wear them and feel good. The rain begins as a hush, barely more than a suggestion, like someone dragging the flat of their palm across a sheet of canvas far overhead. It's not dramatic. No thunder, no flashes. Just that slow, even sound of water finding the angles of the roof, slipping along the grain of shingles and timber, tapping gently against the world like it's asking permission to enter. You lie still beneath the blanket, your body cocooned in warmth, and listen as the storm takes root above. The ceiling answers the rain with a groan, not distressed, not breaking, but old. A sound like stretching joints, like a spine settling after a long day. The rafters above you shift slightly, the groan rolling from one end of the room to the other in a lazy arc. It's the kind of noise that would have frightened you once, in another place, in another kind of house. But not here. This isn't a place where things collapse. This is a place where they endure. You stare at the ceiling beams, dimly lit by the dying candle, and trace the lines in the wood with your eyes. They twist and curve, not straight, not uniform, but steady in their imperfection. One of them has a knot the size of a coin, just above your bed, dark and round like an eye half closed in sleep. You watch the shadows shift across it as the light flickers and think, oddly, of an old woman watching over you. Not stern, but content, satisfied that you've finally come in from the cold. The rain grows a little louder, pattering now with more intention, as if it's realizing the night is long and it has nowhere else to be. You can hear it running in rivulets down the outside of the walls, collecting in unseen gutters and dripping from the edges of the eaves. Somewhere outside, a shutter rattles briefly before falling still again. You imagine the innkeeper tightening it earlier, muttering to himself as he checked the windows with the same care he might give to livestock or aging horseshoes, things that need tending. But nothing leaks. Not a drop. The roof, bowed and bent though it may be, holds fast. You can almost feel it above you like a shield, layered with stories and soot, and the heat of 1,000 fires. It's not beautiful, not clean, but it's loyal. Water slides off it like it knows better than to press its luck. The ceiling groans again, just once, and then is quiet. You feel something settle inside you, something deeper than comfort. It's the absence of worry, the silence of a body no longer braced for the next insult from the world. You've slept in fields before, under trees that didn't bother to keep you dry. You've curled under eaves and half-collapsed lean-tos where water crept in with cold fingers and puddled under your ribs before you could stop it. You've known the fear of waking with your clothes soaked, with your blankets ruined, with your breath catching in your throat from the chill. But here, in this crooked little room above a firelit inn, the rain is a lullaby instead of a warning. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders, and it gives easily, the wool scratching a little against your neck. The dog shifts at the side of the bed, grumbles softly, then returns to his steady breathing. He doesn't mind the storm either. He's lived enough nights in the world to know which ones are kind. Outside, the rain keeps falling, a little heavier now, as if testing the roof's resolve, but nothing breaks, nothing yields. You remain dry. You lie there, eyes half open, watching the candle flicker once more before it gutters out. Darkness takes the room in stages, not suddenly, not sharply, just one shadow deepening after another, until all that remains is sound and warmth and the subtle weight of rest. And even in the dark, you can feel it. That roof above you, flawed and faithful, holding back the night, not because it has to, but because it chooses to. And tonight, you are chosen. The candle gives its last breath with a soft sputter, the flame curling inward, fluttering once, and then disappearing into the stub of melted wax. Its glow leaves the room gradually, not in a rush, as though it's reluctant to go entirely. Shadows fill in the spaces where light had rested, pooling across the floor and crawling gently up the walls. What little moonlight there is filters through the old window, blurred by the thick glass and the falling snow beyond, leaving the room neither fully dark nor light, just dim enough to let the body let go. You lie still, the blanket tucked beneath your chin, its weight snug and full. The mattress has ceased creaking beneath you, settling into quiet agreement with your shape. Even the dog has stopped shifting, his soft huffs of breath spaced evenly in the silence, his body warm against the side of the bed like a sleeping ember. There's no sound now but the slow tick of the room's quiet breathing, the soft groans of wood in the walls, the hush of wind made harmless by old shutters, the muffled patter of snow landing where it pleases. You close your eyes. Sleep does not come in a rush. It slides in gradually, like fog across a still field, touching everything in its path with a hush. Your limbs grow heavy first, not with exhaustion, but with release, as though the blanket above is mirrored by one below, pulling you downward, wrapping you from both sides. Your thoughts begin to wander, no longer tethered by logic or time, dissolving into fragments. Half-remembered laughter, the sound of stew bubbling, a star drawn in fog on glass. These scraps drift past your mind like leaves in a stream, and you don't chase them. The room does not vanish when your eyes close. It remains around you, present in the fabric of your awareness, the way an old coat lingers on your shoulders even after you stop noticing its weight. You feel its shape in the air, its angles and hollows. The slant of the ceiling above, the dip in the mattress beside your hip, the smell of wool and smoke that still clings to the blanket. It doesn't press in on you. It doesn't ask for attention. It just holds you. There is a strange kindness in its silence. You could almost believe the room remembers everyone who has ever slept here, that it carries them somewhere inside the grain of its beams, in the softened corners of its walls, that each creak is not just the sound of old wood, but the echo of another sleeper shifting under this same blanket, pulling it close over the same curve of shoulder. It feels like being one of many, not in a crowd, but in a lineage, part of a quiet tradition of people who came here worn and left with something mended. Your breathing slows, and you feel the room slow with you. Inhale, exhale. The warmth doesn't stay on the outside. It moves inward, deep into the chest, into the places the road forgot to care for. That spot behind your ribs where hunger and worry had nested begins to soften. The tightness between your shoulders unwinds. Your jaw slackens. Even your hands, tucked gently beneath your chin, begin to forget the shapes of effort and become simply hands again. And the sleep that comes is not the kind you wrestle with, not the kind that comes with sudden dreams or jerking limbs. It is deep and deliberate. It pours over you like syrup, thick and slow, a second skin layered over the blanket, warm and familiar. You do not fight it. You surrender to it because the room allows it, because the room asks for nothing but your rest. Somewhere near your feet, the dog exhales one last time, his body gone fully slack. You can feel his breath, steady and warm, and it anchors you in the dark. The snow continues to fall. The wind forgets to howl, and the room, in all its crookedness and creaks, holds the silence without breaking it. It doesn't just let you sleep. It shelters you, completely and wordlessly, the way only something ancient and kind can. You do not notice the moment you drift. You are simply, blessedly, gone. The light is soft at first, a pale wash over your eyelids, more warmth than brightness. It doesn't demand you wake. It simply arrives, unhurried, seeping through the slats of the old wooden shutters and falling in long golden lines across the floorboards. The smell in the room has shifted, slightly. Less of smoke now, more of dry wood and wool warmed by body heat. The storm has passed. The world has turned while you slept, and nothing has fallen apart. You stretch beneath the blanket, slowly, arms reaching above your head until your fingers graze the edge of the wall, and your legs push out to the full length of the bed. The mattress creaks in recognition, joints in the frame shifting like they've been waiting for you to move again. Your body feels different than it did last night, heavier in places, but rested. The kind of tired that suggests repair rather than depletion. You didn't toss or curl tightly in on yourself. You simply rested, and now you're here. The dust dances in the sunlight. It drifts lazily through the air, stirred by your motion, moving like a slow tide across beams and floor and the edge of the chair in the corner. You sit up, squinting toward the window. One shutter has bent inward slightly, allowing a strip of morning to slip through like a whisper. The light pools across the floor and climbs the far wall, brightening the grain in the wood, catching on the uneven edge of the wash basin, the rough texture of the plaster, the corner of your worn sock sticking out from beneath the blanket. It feels like the room is being drawn in charcoal and sunlight at the same time. The dog yawns, his entire body arching with the motion. He's curled up in the same spot, pressed along the floor where he fell asleep. One ear flops backward as he stretches his front legs forward, groaning in protest, then settling again with a lazy shake of his fur. He blinks toward you once, as if to confirm you're still here, then rests his chin on his paws and closes his eyes, satisfied. You swing your feet to the floor, the socks warming instantly against the boards. The floor is no longer cold. Cool, yes, but not biting. It's the kind of temperature that invites movement without punishment. You breathe in deeply. The air carries no hint of damp, no trace of mildew or lingering storm. Just the honest scent of an old building waking up with its guests. Beneath it all, there's a faint smell of bread from downstairs, faint and rising like a distant promise. You run your hand through your hair, and it snags on a knot you don't bother to untangle. There's no mirror in the room, and you're grateful for it. You don't want to see yourself just yet. Not because you're afraid of what you'll find, but because the image would be unnecessary. You feel human again. That's enough. You look around once more, taking in the room in full daylight. The ceiling beams look less ominous now, more like arms stretched across the sky. The knot in the wood above your head has become an eye watching with kindness. The blanket has slipped to your waist, still warm with your sleep. Even Brunhilde, the chamber pot, seems to glow faintly in the sun, her name catching a glint of gold as though she, too, is enjoying the peace of the morning. You rest your elbows on your knees and hold the silence a little longer. You're still here, not just in body, but in place, in spirit. You weren't chased out by weather or fear or restlessness. The world is still spinning, and you are still in the middle of it, breathing steady in a room that did nothing but hold you while you drifted. Outside the window, the snow has slowed, light and lazy, too tired to do anything but decorate. You imagine the roof above is steaming gently now, warmed by the sun, strong in its stillness. You rise without urgency. There's no need to rush. Morning has already found you. It's the smell that gets you first, before your feet touch the floor, before your eyes fully open, before you even remember where you are. It seeps in like a memory long forgotten, one that bypasses logic and goes straight to the hunger curled at the center of your body. Warmth in the air, thick and savory. Bread, definitely. Not just flour and yeast, but something deeper, richer. A crust blackened just enough around the edges to give it flavor, not ruin. Cheese, too, sharp and familiar, blooming in the back of your throat before you even sit up, and something else beneath it, lingering like a rumor. Bacon, maybe. Or perhaps last night's stew, heated again and nudged back to life, a little thicker now, a little saltier, like it's had time to understand its own purpose. You roll onto your side and blink toward the window, where sunlight filters through the shutter slats and cuts gold bars across the floor. The dog is already awake, stretched out with his nose pointed toward the door. His ears twitch once. He doesn't bark or whine, just breathes deeply, letting you know he smells it too. He lifts his head when you shift and gives you a look that says what you're already thinking. You need to move. Your body protests, but only faintly. It's not the sharp ache of unrest or the stiffness of a night on cold stone. It's a softness around the joints, the comfortable soreness that says your body was finally given the chance to rest. You throw off the blanket and sit up, planting your feet on the warm wood floor. The socks are still snug around your ankles. You flex your toes against the boards and breathe in again. There's sweetness in the air now, tucked behind the cheese and bread. Apples, maybe, or something boiled in cider, a kind of comfort you can taste even before your mouth waters. You can hear it now, too. Movement below. The shuffle of feet across stone, the creak of the hearth being fed, the scrape of metal against iron, someone humming a slow tune without words. Dishes clink softly. A door creaks and closes. The rhythm of breakfast being born. The dog rises first, shaking out his coat with a gentle rattle of fur. He pads to the door and waits, tail wagging lazily, expectantly. You follow with less grace, but more intention. The room feels like it's exhaling as you leave it behind. The mattress retains the ghost of your weight. The blanket remains slightly indented where your knees curled under it. Even the candle stub sits as you left it, the wax cooled in uneven layers, its wick pale and quiet. You open the door, and the hallway welcomes you with the scent even stronger now, filling the corridor like sunlight might fill a bowl. You move slowly, savoring each step as if the smell alone could feed you. The stairs creak beneath your feet, but not loud enough to disrupt the morning. The inn is already alive, but gently, without rush. This is not the noise of urgency or demand. It is the hum of people doing what they know best. You reach the common room, and there it is in full. The fire glowing low but proud, casting heat toward the long table where a loaf of bread sits split and steaming. A wedge of cheese, already sweating, waits beside it, and something sizzles in the pan near the hearth. Bacon. Yes, definitely bacon now, or something close enough to count. You think you smell onion too, mingled with meat and butter and smoke. The stew pot has been nudged closer to the fire again, the scent rising from its surface heartier now, layered with salt and whatever herbs the cook has on hand this time of year. Your stomach groans audibly. The innkeeper glances over and grunts. Not unkindly, but with the mild surprise of someone who assumes you were already awake. The barmaid nods toward the bread like it's yours already. The dog trots ahead and curls up beneath the bench, as if he's been doing this for years. You sit, still half asleep, and take a deep breath as the plate is set before you. You don't ask what it is. You don't need to. The smell has already told you all you need to know. You were expected. You are fed. You are, unmistakably, home. The moment your feet touch the floor, the cold reaches up and greets you. Not sharp, not cruel, but honest. The wood beneath your toes is smooth in places, rough in others, a patchwork of use and age. It doesn't apologize for its chill. It simply is. You curl your toes slightly, testing the surface, and feel the contrast spread through you, like dipping your hands into a stream after walking all day. The warmth that still clings to your skin from the blanket above doesn't retreat. It settles in more deeply, made sweeter by the reminder of what lies just beyond it. You sit there on the edge of the bed for a long breath, your elbows resting lightly on your knees, spine still waking up from the curve it kept through the night. The room is quiet now, but not silent. The sounds of morning carry gently through the walls, the rhythmic scrape of a broom somewhere below, the muffled bark of a dog outside, the slow stretch of the inn, exhaling into a new day. You roll your shoulders back and feel the tug of sleep in your muscles, not quite ready to be let go. Then you rise. You stand slowly, every joint shifting with a soft, familiar complaint. But it's not pain. It's the echo of effort, the memory of a day well spent, well survived. You stretch your arms high above your head, spine lengthening, ribs lifting, lungs pulling in air that still smells faintly of wood smoke and wool, and the bread you haven't yet eaten. You stretch not because you need to, but because it feels good, because you can, because this body, however worn, is still yours. And today, it feels like something you've earned. You bend forward, hands brushing your shins, and when you straighten, there's a warmth in your chest that has nothing to do with fire or blankets or food. It's quieter than pride, steadier than joy. A sense that you are real, that you are here, that you've been carried through the night and placed gently into the arms of morning. You move toward the basin near the window and splash cold water on your face, the shock of it crisp and bracing. You blink it away, then stare at your reflection in the rippling surface. Not quite clear, but recognizable. Enough. Behind you, the dog stirs, his claws ticking softly against the boards as he shifts to a new position, then goes still again. You glance back at him and find him watching you with one eye open, head still down. He doesn't move beyond that. He doesn't need to. His presence is as firm as the floor beneath your feet. You dry your face with the hem of your shirt and move toward the shuttered window, pushing it open just wide enough to let in a draft. The air is crisp and carries the scent of wet bark, chimney smoke, and the faintest trace of distant fields. You lean into it, letting the wind brush across your skin and tug lightly at your hair. The cold is sharper here, unfiltered, but it doesn't drive you back. It sharpens you instead, outlines you in sensation. You feel the weight of your feet, the curve of your fingers, the quiet strength of your breath. The snow has stopped. What remains is a pale morning painted across the village rooftops, each one capped in white, like a cake left out in the frost. No one rushes through the streets. Movement is slow, measured, as if the world itself is stretching with you, finding its rhythm again. You shut the window softly and turn back to the room, which now feels smaller and dearer for the moment outside. You dress slowly, layer by layer, wool against linen, boots over socks, each piece settling into place with a satisfying sense of ritual. The clothes are still warm from where you left them. They hold the memory of fire. When you finish, you pause once more beside the bed. The blanket lies in gentle disarray, still shaped to your outline. You smooth it without thinking, not to tidy, but to thank it. Then your feet carry you to the door. Quiet, firm, deliberate. And when you open it, you do not step into the hallway like a guest. You walk like someone whose soul has remembered the shape of their skin. The stairs creak beneath your weight, but no one glances up as you descend. The sound is just another thread in the morning tapestry, a familiar one, worn in like the curve of the handrail beneath your palm. The air thickens with warmth as you reach the bottom step, a soft gust of heat from the hearth rolling over your shins like a greeting. The scent of bread and butter and wood smoke wraps around you, so complete that it feels less like entering a room and more like being gathered into a memory. The common room hums with quiet life. The hearth glows with a steady fire, not raging, just consistent, like it knows its job and does it without fuss. A blackened kettle hovers just above the coals, steam curling from its spout in lazy loops. A pot nearby simmers with something thick and hearty. Stew, most likely, the kind that only improves with time and a generous hand at the salt jar. The aroma coils into the air and rises to meet the wooden beams overhead, mingling with the faint tang of cider and the sweet whisper of something just out of reach. Honey, maybe. Or roasted apples left too long near the flame. You pause just a moment to take it in. The room isn't grand. It leans slightly to the left, as though settling its bones after a long night. The benches are mismatched. One of the stools has a leg that doesn't fully commit to its job, and the plaster near the far corner wall is cracked in a way that no one seems bothered by. But none of it feels broken. It feels lived in, trusted. Like every flaw is a signature from someone who once called this place theirs, even if only for a night. A burst of laughter rises near the hearth. Not loud or raucous, but warm. A ripple that travels from the lips of one man with a red nose and curls behind his ears to the shoulders of the woman beside him, who chuckles into her mug as if she's heard the punchline before and still finds it worth the effort. Another man sneezes so forcefully his spoon clatters to the table. Someone blesses him without looking up. No one minds. It's that kind of room. You move toward an open spot at the far end of the bench. A wooden bowl, freshly filled, is set before you have a chance to speak. The innkeeper's daughter, perhaps. It's hard to say. She doesn't ask your name, doesn't need to. She only offers a small nod that somehow manages to feel both casual and kind. There's a cup of something hot and spiced beside the bowl, its steam drifting up to meet the laughter above it. You settle in. The bench is hard but familiar beneath you. The warmth from the fire reaches your back, and the sounds of the room, cutlery against crockery, the scrape of chairs, the hum of conversation, form a soft, living wall around you. The dog finds his way back to you after a moment, tail wagging lazily, and flops at your feet with the sigh of someone who's earned their breakfast too. He rests his chin on your boot and promptly falls asleep, unbothered by the bustle. You dip your spoon into the bowl. It's stew, yes, but different from last night's, reborn somehow, thicker, richer, steeped in all the flavors the fire could draw out. You take a bite, and it's not just food. It's grounding. The warmth moves from your mouth to your throat, down to your chest, spreading out like a hand smoothing wrinkles from your soul. More laughter breaks out across the table. Someone tells a story about a goat with a grudge. You miss the beginning but catch the end, and it's enough to make you smile. You don't know these people, but it doesn't matter. You are in their story now, and they in yours. Another sneeze, another blessing. The dog snores. And in that moment, with stew on your tongue, bread in your hand, and laughter rising like steam around you, the world feels exactly as it should be. Perfect. The cup is in your hand before you even realize you needed one. The innkeeper places it there with a grunt and a nod, neither brusque nor warm, just final, as though the matter was never in question. His fingers brush yours, rough and warm from the hearth, and then he moves on without waiting for thanks. You glance down. The cup is simple, carved wood, with a wide lip, still steaming gently. You don't ask what's in it. You don't need to. It's the kind of drink that doesn't come with an explanation. You raise it slowly, testing the heat first with a cautious breath. The steam smells like something between earth and spice. Rosemary, perhaps, or dried sage softened by time. There's something richer beneath it, too. A bass note that might be meat, or roots, or just the weariness in your bones, trying to name comfort. The first sip is cautious. The second, less so. It's not quite tea, not quite broth, not beer exactly either, though it carries the warmth of all three. Whatever it is, it's hot and grounding, a little salty, a little bitter, and not sweet in the slightest. It tastes like forgiveness. Not the grand, dramatic kind with tears and declarations and sweeping orchestral strings, but the quieter sort, the kind that settles low in your belly and says, without fanfare, you've been through enough. The kind that doesn't pretend things didn't go wrong, or that you didn't mess something up, or that the road wasn't longer than it should have been. It just lets you sit and drink and be. You rest the cup between your palms and stare into the fire for a while, letting the sounds of the room fade into the edges of your attention. The wood crackles. Someone clears their throat. A spoon scrapes the bottom of a bowl. Your fingers tighten around the cup each time you lift it, your knuckles warming with each sip. It's not elegant. It doesn't pretend to be. The rim is a little uneven, worn by years of lips and heat and time, and there's a faint chip near one edge. You drink around it instinctively, like you've always known it was there. The cup feels older than you. You imagine it's been passed to dozens, maybe hundreds, of hands just like yours. Travelers, strangers, folk who came in with the weight of something behind them and found that no one here needed to ask what it was. Some may have told their stories anyway, eager to unburden. Others probably stayed silent, like you. Either way, the cup made the rounds. It was lifted and drained and set down again, always waiting for the next person who didn't know they needed it until it was there. You take another sip. It's cooled slightly, just enough to taste the deeper notes now. Something like barley maybe, or dried mushrooms. Something humble and earthy. You close your eyes and let the warmth trace a slow path down your throat to your core. You exhale through your nose and feel the tension slide from your shoulders as though coaxed by the drink itself. The dog shifts at your feet and lets out a contented grunt, his tail thumping once against the floor before stilling again. You look down at him and wonder, briefly, if he was also handed something before he asked for it. A scrap of bread, a corner of meat, a place beside the hearth. Probably so. This inn seems to know what people need long before they say it aloud. You finish the drink, tilting the cup to catch the last of it, and set it down gently on the table. It makes a dull, satisfying sound, like a door being closed with care. Across the room, the innkeeper meets your eye for a brief moment and raises one thick brow. Not a question, not a challenge, just acknowledgement. You give the smallest of nods, and he grunts once more before disappearing behind a curtain. You sit for a while longer, hands resting on the cup, now empty but still warm. There's no need to move yet. You've been forgiven, even if you didn't ask for it. She moves through the room like someone who grew up in its bones. Fluid, sure, and entirely unbothered by the shifting of chairs or the lopsided lean of the tables. A long ribbon the color of cranberries is tied loosely in her hair, bright against the soot-dark brown of it. It slips down her back as she passes, brushing her shoulder each time she turns her head. You don't notice her at first, not really. You're too caught up in your cup and the warmth of the hearth, in the familiar heaviness that comes after good food and better silence. But then she's there beside you, a plate already lifted from the table before you've even realized you set your spoon down. She doesn't ask if you're finished. She just knows. You glance up, and that's when she smiles. It's not coy, not rehearsed. It's a little crooked, a little mischievous, like the two of you are in on some quiet joke you don't yet understand. The kind of smile that feels like a question and an answer at once. Her eyes are dark, but not unreadable, soft around the edges, curious without expectation. She winks, quick and easy, as if you've earned it by simply being here and managing not to break anything. Your mouth is too slow to say thank you, but she doesn't wait for words. She's already turning, already halfway across the room with your plate stacked on top of another, the clink of crockery light, and practiced in her hands. The ribbon sways again, catching the firelight for a moment before disappearing into the curve of her shoulder. You watch her move with the practiced rhythm of someone who's done this before and will do it again tomorrow. She weaves around patrons with ease, nudges a stool with her hip so someone doesn't trip, laughs quietly at something an old man mutters as she passes. She smells like flour and wood smoke, and something sweeter beneath it. Maybe cinnamon, maybe just the way warmth sticks to skin. You realize, a little late, that you're smiling too. The dog shifts at your feet, ears twitching, but doesn't lift his head. He's long past surprise, used to the pace of this place and the people in it. You glance back toward the fire, then toward the kitchen door swinging shut behind her. It's a half door, the top left open, so the scent of baking and broth and long-warmed spices follows her, even as she disappears into the back. Another burst of laughter rises behind you. The morning rolls on. You try to remember if she said anything, if her voice lilted upward or sat low like embers, but there was only the smile, the wink, the smell of flour. Still, you know already it'll be a memory that sticks. One of those odd details your mind refuses to let go of. A flash of ribbon, a glance over the shoulder. The way she moved like she belonged to the inn, and it to her. You don't know her name. That doesn't matter. Names are too heavy for moments like that. What you'll remember is the way she looked at you. Not like a stranger, not even like a guest, but like someone who'd been coming here for years and just hadn't shown up in a while. Like you'd been expected. Like she knew you were a little tired still and made sure to take your empty plate before you noticed you were clinging to it. She might forget you by tomorrow. She probably will. Her days are filled with too many faces and too many footsteps, and her ribbon will keep swaying through countless mornings to come. But you'll remember her. You'll remember the quiet joy of being seen without fanfare. You'll remember the warmth in your belly and the taste of stew and the way she made a simple wink feel like a gift. You'll carry it with you, tucked somewhere between the smell of smoke and the sound of the fire, pressed flat and safe like a pressed flower in an old book. And someday, when the road grows long again and your body forgets how soft a bench can feel, you'll think of that smile. And it will still be enough. You lift your cloak from the peg near the door and drape it over your shoulders, half expecting it to resist, to cling to some lingering dampness or sag under the memory of the storm. But it doesn't. It's dry now, soft and warm in the way only wool that's been close to a fire can be. Someone must have brought it near the hearth after you shed it last night. Someone thought ahead, cared quietly, tended to it without being asked. You don't know who. You don't need to. It smells faintly of smoke and thyme and something sweet you can't name, like the trace of a song you didn't realize you'd forgotten. As it settles around your shoulders, the familiar weight returns, not burdensome, not heavy in the way that travel sometimes is, but grounding. Like a hand pressed to your back in parting, firm and fond. The fabric folds at your elbows, snug at your neck where you fasten the clasp. It no longer feels like something you dragged through a storm. It feels like it belongs to you again, like something that knows your shape. You shift your shoulders beneath it and stand a little straighter. The inn breathes around you, low and steady. The fire has burned down to its bones, just glowing coals now, and the sound of scraping dishes carries softly from the kitchen beyond. The dog is already up and waiting near the door, tail sweeping lazily, as if he's always known you wouldn't stay. He doesn't whine or pace, doesn't look anxious. He's content, maybe even proud. He knows, just as you do, that the leaving is part of it. You glance toward the table where you sat, now wiped clean and bare but still warm from all the life that's passed over it this morning. The cup you held is gone, your plate cleared, your spoon washed and returned to its place. Nothing remains of your presence but a bit of flattened dust on the bench and the echo of your footfall. And still, it feels like you've left something here. Not anything seen, but something of yourself. A trace. A pause. The cloak's hem brushes your calves as you move toward the door. Every step softened by the hush of worn wood and the knowledge that no one is rushing you. The innkeeper nods once from behind the counter, his eyes not leaving the ledger he's scratching in. No farewell speech, no final wisdom. Just the nod. It says everything. The girl with the ribbon isn't in sight. A part of you is grateful for that. The ribbon's better remembered in motion than in stillness. Some things are meant to leave marks quietly. You reach the door, and your hand lingers on the latch for a breath, longer than necessary. The cloak hugs you from behind like it understands. You don't look back, not because you don't want to, but because you don't have to. You step outside. The morning air is crisp and damp, not cold exactly, but brisk enough to make your nose tingle. The sky is a sheet of pale gray, stretching across the rooftops, and the snow has turned to slush along the edges of the cobbles. The road waits, as roads do. You pull your hood up and let the wind touch your face once, before tucking your chin against it. The cloak holds the heat of the inn close to your skin. It does not fight the wind, it meets it. And in that moment you realize it doesn't feel like a travel-worn rag anymore. It feels like armor. Not the gleaming, clanking kind from stories, but real armor. The kind that comes from safety, from care, from being seen and fed and held, and then sent back into the world a little stronger. You take your first step forward. The dog follows at your heel, nose twitching at the scent of the road ahead. You walk slowly, not because the journey ahead is daunting, but because the warmth behind you still clings to your shoulders like a farewell embrace. The cloak moves with you, ready, familiar, forgiven. You walk away from the inn feeling entirely like yourself again. And that is the gift. You wait until you're nearly at the gate. The inn is behind you, its roof smudged against the pale morning sky, and the chimney still trails a sleepy line of smoke that curls upward before losing interest in direction. The cold air nips gently at your cheeks, but it isn't cruel. It feels honest, as if the world is reminding you that comfort is rare and should be remembered, not clung to, but carried. The dog trots beside you, not close enough to touch, but near enough to be company. He doesn't need a leash or a command. He's not really yours, not in the way people claim things. But he's come along anyway, like he's always known when it's time to walk a stranger to the edge of a new beginning. His gait is lopsided, his hips a little uneven, his fur patchy in places. His ears are too big for his head, and his nose has that cracked, dry look that says he's seen too many summers and won too many bar fights under tables. And yet he moves like he knows the road better than you do. Like it owes him something, and he intends to collect it slowly, one satisfied step at a time. You pause beneath the bare branches of a tree just beyond the edge of the village, where the path splits into three uncertain choices. The sky is clearing. You feel it more than see it. Somewhere behind the clouds, the sun stretches, remembering its duties. You glance down at the dog, who has stopped with you, sitting as if he's already chosen this to be the end of his role in your story. And that's when you do it. You reach out and place your hand gently atop his head. It's not planned, not ceremonial, just one firm, quiet touch. His fur is coarse and still carries the warmth of the hearth from hours before. You don't scratch or rub or coo. You just hold your hand there for a second, maybe two. A simple acknowledgement, a thank you, a benediction. He doesn't look up, doesn't shift his weight or lift his chin, but his tail moves, just once, thumping the ground in a slow, deliberate tap. Then again, a rhythm with no rush in it, like a drum sounding approval or a bell rung in contentment. It's enough. You leave your hand there a moment longer, then withdraw it quietly, tucking it back into your cloak as though sealing a small act of grace away for later. The dog stands, stretches one leg lazily behind him, and then turns, heading back toward the inn with the same unhurried air he had when he joined you. No goodbye, no glance over the shoulder. He knows where he belongs. You watch him disappear between two hedgerows and vanish around the bend in the road. A breeze lifts your cloak and nudges you gently forward. You adjust the weight of your pack, roll your shoulders once, and take your first step past the fork in the path. The road ahead is less familiar than the one behind you, but it no longer feels like a threat. You carry the warmth of the hearth in your cloak, the steadiness of sleep in your bones, the taste of comfort on your tongue. And on your palm, faint and fading but certain, the ghost of coarse fur and the heartbeat of a friend you didn't ask for. You walk on, not alone, not entirely. And behind you, back in the crooked little inn with the fire that never asks questions, a dog settles beside a cold hearth, sighs once, and waits for the next soul in need of quiet company. The door is already open behind you, just a crack. Enough that you can feel the cold pressing in gently against the back of your legs and the warmth still gathered in the hollow of your collarbone. You haven't stepped through yet. Not really. Your boots rest on the worn threshold, scuffed by the comings and goings of others before you, but your weight is still in the room. One foot hovers, indecisive. Your breath fogs faintly as you stand there, half inside, half not. Behind you, the inn hums with the soft murmur of dishes being stacked and the low rhythm of a broom across flagstone. The fire crackles softly, a sleepy rhythm now, as if it's settled into its daytime posture, content to smolder rather than roar. You catch a distant laugh from the kitchen, one of those unguarded laughs that springs out without apology. It's the kind that makes you smile without knowing why. You turn your head slightly toward the sound, as though your body, if left to its own devices, might just sit back down and ask for one more cup of whatever that forgiving broth was. The air at your back is brisk and real. The day has sharpened in the hours since you woke, and the wind carries with it the scent of churned earth, wet stone, and something metallic and faintly green, maybe moss, maybe spring trying to push through the stubborn edges of winter. The sun hasn't broken fully through the clouds yet, but there's light all the same, pale and persistent. It finds the floor near your feet and stains it gold. You should go. The day waits, and the road beyond is not patient. But still, you linger. Not because you're uncertain. You know the next step. You know the shape of the path waiting for your footprints. But you hesitate, because this place, this crooked, warm, imperfect inn, has managed to wrap itself around you in the quietest of ways. It hasn't demanded anything from you. It didn't save you. It simply gave you space to rest. And somehow, that was more powerful. You glance to your left, and there, hung low on a bent nail, is your travel pouch. It waits where you left it, untouched but not unattended. Someone took care to hang it just so, to smooth the strap, to lay the flap closed. You sling it over your shoulder and feel the shift of weight across your back. It feels lighter than when you arrived, even though nothing inside has changed. A gust of wind nudges the door wider. You step forward, almost without meaning to, your body finally following your intent. The edge of your cloak lifts and flutters against your calf. The first step outside is always the hardest, not because of the cold or the journey ahead, but because it means accepting that a moment of peace has truly ended. You don't look back just yet. You let the door swing softly on its hinge behind you, holding that final pause like a held breath. Then, slowly, you turn. The inn stands as it always has, slightly leaning, its timbers patched and proud, the windows crooked and glowing faintly in the morning light. Smoke puffs from the chimney in steady rhythm, and the sign above the lintel swings gently on its iron bracket. It doesn't shimmer or shine. It doesn't beckon. It simply is. You know you'll carry this place with you now, tucked somewhere deep beneath the layers of travel grime and trail dust, in the fold of your cloak, in the memory of a heavy blanket that smelled like thyme, in the spot on your palm where a dog's head once rested. You take one more breath, then step onto the road. Not away from the inn, not exactly. Not leaving it behind. You walk forward because you've been reminded that places like this exist, that warmth like this can be found. And that's enough to keep going. The road unfolds ahead, long and rutted, a ribbon of mud and stone that curves through bare trees and pale light. The wind meets you immediately, sharp and honest, pushing into the folds of your cloak and whispering reminders that comfort is a luxury the world rarely hands out freely. Your boots sink slightly with each step, pressing new shapes into old tracks. There's no sound but your breath and the wind and the distant hush of something moving in the underbrush. Nothing urgent, just the quiet sigh of the world continuing without you. But you are not empty. The warmth doesn't cling to your skin the way it did beside the hearth. It lives somewhere deeper now, somewhere just behind your ribs, like an ember wrapped in wool. It doesn't flicker, it glows. And as you walk, it hums. You carry the inn with you. It's in the way your shoulders have dropped, no longer tight with the invisible weight of caution. It's in the ease of your step, no longer the gait of someone always watching for danger in every doorway. The inn softened something in you, not by fixing it, but by giving it a place to rest. And that place still echoes in you now, quiet but sturdy, like a song you don't remember learning but hum without thinking. Inside you, there's a room that creaks with every footstep, but it welcomes the sound. A crooked little chamber upstairs with a wool blanket that scratches and hugs in equal measure. The mattress dips just slightly on one side, and a candle flickers even when you close your eyes. In that room, the wind never quite gets in. It pushes at the shutters, yes, and groans through the rafters, but it never touches your skin. In that room you are known, even if no one asked your name. And there's a fire that waits. Not dramatic, not roaring, but steady. Its coals banked beneath a crust of ash, waiting patiently for someone to stir it back to life. You can still feel its warmth in the backs of your knees, in your fingertips, in the place between your shoulders where cold used to live. That fire holds stories, not all of them true, and welcomes laughter that doesn't need to explain itself. You see it now, when you blink. Red and gold and glowing behind your eyelids. You pass a hillock, and the wind lifts, carrying with it the sharp scent of pine and snow. You pull your cloak tighter. It's heavier than before, not from damp or dust, but because it remembers, too. It remembers the smell of stew and the shape of a dog curled beneath your bench. It remembers the girl with the ribbon and the silent strength of the innkeeper's nod. You feel that memory each time the fabric shifts against your arms, like arms folded around your back, not holding you still, but giving you one last squeeze before letting go. You walk alone, but not lonely. The dog didn't follow. He knew better than to go where he wasn't needed. But sometimes, when your foot catches a stone and your pace falters, you half expect to hear his snort behind you. You don't. Still, the memory of him walks beside you, lopsided, loyal, real. A crow cries somewhere overhead, and the path bends slightly toward a thinning tree line. The sky brightens, soft and silver, with no promise of warmth, but a promise nonetheless. You press forward with wind in your face, hands tucked into your sleeves, eyes squinting into the distance. And inside you, the inn stays lit. It doesn't stop the cold, not entirely. It doesn't make the walk easier or the journey shorter, but it changes how you move through it, because you've been held, because you've sat in silence with your hands around a wooden cup and felt something settle in your chest that wasn't fear or hunger or weariness, but something quieter, something whole. You walk on, and with each step, the fire travels with you. The blanket doesn't let go. The room still waits, exactly as you left it, tucked into a corner of your heart that creaks a little, but never closes.